Hi everyone, Roguish Puck. So big news: the Commanders for the Final Fantasy Commanders set dropped. I think today, technically last night for me, and so I kind of wanted to just spend a little time going through them a little bit, get my opinion of them. To be honest, I don't know two of the commanders very well. I know Cloud and I know Titus, whatever. But I don't know the other ones. I know the name Terra, but I don't know. I think it actually says on them which they're from. Y'shtola, Final Fantasy X 1v14. Terra is Final Fantasy 6. Final Fantasy 10 for Titus. Obviously Final Fantasy 7 Cloud. To be honest, I want to just maybe give my opinion on them a little bit. Maybe throw some deck tech that I can think of immediately in there. I obviously don't know what they're going to run in the end. And then yesterday I was spending some time throwing together some... Well, I was going to say predictions, and I was going to make a video, but then these dropped last night. So now it's a reaction to these plus some stuff that I think would be cool. Versus my own Cloud that I had thrown together as a prediction. But obviously this is the commander. These are the commanders. There could be Clouds in the main set that are different. Cloud starts off as a wimpy little POS, I think, in Advent Children, and I don't really know that much about Final Fantasy. Starting off, we have Cloud, ex-soldier. He is a 2 colorless and then Naya. He's a 4/4 human soldier mercenary with haste, and when Cloud enters, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to it. Whenever Cloud attacks, draw a card for each equipped attacking creature you control. Then if Cloud has power 7 or greater, create 2 treasure tokens. So currently I love it. Well, I love it. I really enjoy the ex-soldier. I like the human soldier mercenary. I love the set symbol, the little chocobo. He's got haste, so I mean well, you're in green, so turn 4, maybe turn 3, maybe. You could do turn 3. Turn 1 Soul Ring. Turn 1 ramp. Turn 2 ramp. Turn 3 cast Cloud. But you'd want to have some equipment out. One thing that comes to my mind is Glow Cap Lantern. That's in green. And you can be exploring and drawing extra cards off. Well, not drawing extra, but getting the lands off that trigger and drawing the cards that you want. I have a Jorkadine deck that actually functions very similar to this. Jorkadine first Gold Warden gets +X/+X, where X is the equipped creatures, and then he can draw a card if he has power 4 or greater. So it's very similar. I love the set. Then if he has power 7, I just think that's a nice little Final Fantasy 7 throwback. But overall, I'm kind of happy about it. The art's sick, so that's always good. And then I'd thrown together my own Cloud idea, so I'll see how it goes. To be fair, I had gone with Boros, not Naya, and almost the same mana cost, so that's not too bad. Only 1 green pip short, and I'd gone a 3/2. Again, like I said, that's the commander. There could be a Cloud in the set that could be different, and I really wanted to see partnered with artifacts. I think that'd be cool. So mine was Cloud Untested Hero 2 and Boros for a human soldier. I had that part right. Partner with the Buster Sword. Buster Sword? Buster Blade, Buster Sword. Yeah. So obviously when ET enters, you would be able to search for it. When Cloud Untested Hero attacks, if equipped with a legendary artifact, Cloud Untested Hero gains Vigilance and Double Strike. Which obviously would lead into my next one of the Buster Sword itself. Which I had was a 5 mana 5 mana legendary artifact equipment. And I said equipped creature gets +7/+7. Which was my little throwback to Final Fantasy VII. Mental blank then. But I also had when equipped creature attacks, unless that creature is legendary, that creature exerts. Because I thought it was pretty cool. Like you could equip it to anything. Oh, I didn't have an equip cost on there. That's annoying. Apparently it takes a lot to design a magic card. Who knew? I thought, you know, you could have a relatively low cost equip cost, but then when it would go to actually attack, if it's not something like Cloud or a legendary creature, then that creature untaps and doesn't untap to the following, not the next untap, the next untap step. But that's just kind of because canonically I feel like it's pretty fucking heavy of a sword. It's not something everyone can just pick up and throw around. It was going to be like a 5 mana equip 2, equip creature gets +7/+7, and then again, if it's not legendary, it exerts. Next we have Terra, Herald of Hope, for Mardu. She's a legendary creature, human wizard warrior, 3 power, 3 toughness, with trance. At the beginning of combat on your turn, mill 2 cards. Terra gains flying until end of turn. I think that's pretty cool. Whenever Terra deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2. When you do, return target creature card with power 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I quite like that. I mean, there's lots of stuff. I mean, some pretty aggressive stuff, I think, that's power 3 or less. It's a creature card, yeah. So you could have... What do I know this? I mean, Esper Sentinel is... power 3 or less. For some reason I was thinking mana value. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I feel like we've seen a lot of similar kind of commanders. Murders at Color of Mana had the Surveil equal to power. I can't... now I've drawn a mental blank now that I'm thinking about it. But I feel like there's been a lot of reanimators going on. And I know that that's kind of what Black does, but it'd be nice to see something a little bit different. But overall, I think it's pretty cool. It's not something I would build, and I probably wouldn't pick up the Precon, whereas I would probably pick up the Cloud one. I still think it's pretty cool. Cloud has more ideas in my head, stuff like Jolene and that kind of thing. Next up we have Titus, Yuna's Guardian, and that's just for Bant. He is a legendary creature, human warrior, 3 power, 3 toughness. With, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may move a counter from a target creature you control onto a second target creature you control. He also has Cheer. Whenever one or more creatures with counters... Whenever one or more creatures you control with counters on them deal combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and proliferate. It's pretty cool. I immediately think of Toxic, but that's because I have a banned Toxic deck, so that's probably why. And the proliferate trigger is just in my brain for Toxic counters. Obviously you could run it through Toxic, but I also think there's probably going to be a lot of Sakashima and why can I not think? Spark Double, a lot of clone effects I think on Titus. So then it doesn't matter how many things you're hitting. Doesn't matter that it only triggers once per turn because you're cloning it and you'll get like 3 or 4 triggers. But I think it's pretty good. Again, it's not something I will build, but I'm pretty excited to see what people do with them. Finally, out of the spoilered pre-con commanders, obviously these are all the face commanders. It doesn't include secondary commanders or anything like that. Be interesting to see what they do with those. But we have Y'shtola. Y'shtola? I think I'm saying that correctly. Knight's Blessed. Firstly, I'm just going to say amazing art by, I'm going to say Magali. Always love her art. For 1 and Esper. She's a legendary creature cat warlock with power 2, toughness 4. She has vigilance. At the beginning of each end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, you draw a card. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, Y'shtola deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. So my first thoughts are immediately stuff like Quasar or Agonies that will ping and drain opponents for life for card draw. You'll gain a life. Then you've also got chuck a couple of things in there like Teferi's Ageless Insight, or what is it? It's that little moon thing, Kami of the Crescent Moon. Either of those things I think would be really well because they destroy more cards. And then if you've got drain triggers, like card draw, drain your opponent triggers, it's going to be drawing mad amount of cards. Obviously you're going to get some game changes in there, Smothering Tide, that kind of thing. That way that whenever your opponents draw cards, you are just ramping up the treasures just to cast those non-creature spells. But I think she's very interesting. I want to buy the precon, not purely because she's a cat girl. It's part of the reason, but also because I think lately I've been playing some Esper stuff and I'm really enjoying it. So I think this will just fit in right nicely with all that. Now I've given my very, very quick opinion on some of those. I know it was very quick, but there's been very little released on the set, and I want to kind of build them, but I also know that there's going to be a bunch of stuff released. There's going to be new cards coming out in the sets. Again, like Cloud's going to have a Buster Sword, I'm sure, and I can't... Maybe once there's spoilers, maybe I'll do some deck techie building stuff, but otherwise I just kind of wanted to go through some of the other things that I had thrown together, stuff that I thought would be cool to see, or little ideas that I had. And first we have Sid Highwind, Airship Captain. It's for 1 and Jeskai, human pilot, a legendary creature human pilot, 3 power 3 toughness, and when he enters you create Highwind, a colorless artifact token, a legendary colorless artifact token. With this vehicle enters with X +1/+1 counters for each artifact you control. I just thought that'd be cool. It's very similar to a lot of stuff out there already. I just kind of really like Sid because I could probably cosplay as Sid real easy. That's maybe the reason. And I quite like his character in Kingdom Hearts. To be fair, I'm probably going to liken all of the Final Fantasy stuff back to Kingdom Hearts, because that is the most Final Fantasy media I've consumed in ever. And I know it's not Final Fantasy, but it does have all of those stuff in it. And here is the Highwind. That probably should say token on there, but I didn't have that. And then this vehicle enters with X +1/+1 counters for each artifact you control. I don't know how wording works in Magic that well. Power and toughness is equal to the amount of counters on it. I don't know if you would crew it and then it would immediately become a 3/3 because it's got those counters on it. I just didn't want it to die to a state-based action. And then I realise now that I've put against flying and vigilance. I'm like, able to gain vigilance. It's going to uncrew and it's going to go back to being a useless little artifact. But again, like I said, it's actually a lot harder to design Magic cards than you'd think. And it was after all of these that I threw these together yesterday, and I'm just like, oh well, that wouldn't work. Actually, no. No, that wouldn't work. Yep, no, wouldn't work. But I still enjoyed doing it, so there's that. I'd also had an idea for, I think this is maybe the only other Final Fantasy game I've really played. I can't even remember what game it is, but whatever game has Cecil. And so I thought, Cecil Dark Knight, and I know for a fact he has a job change about, or you can change his jobs. So it was just a Cecil Dark Knight for Demir, legendary creature, human knight, 3 power, 2 toughness, with Death Touch, because his sword could just kill people like mad. And then when Cecil Dark Knight would be transformed, destroyed, transform instead, and he would transform into Cecil Paladin Reborn, which is one in Esper. I don't know how transforming commanders work. I'm not that good at the rules. I would need to look into it, but I'm fairly certain you have Esper because Esper color identity on both sides because of that pip. Legendary creature, human knight. He's a 4/4 with lifelink, and when he attacks, target permanent gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. Which actually, now I think about it, could be pretty busted. Especially if you had something that sacrificed itself at the end of combat. Oh wait, no, sacrificed itself. Would get around indestructible, destroyed itself at the end of combat. But I still think it would be cool to have. I have an idea that there's going to be a lot of dual face cards, and I might have obviously just pulled that from nowhere, but I think it'd be pretty cool. Another idea I'd had was for Sephiroth. I don't know how much I like this one as much as I liked some of the other ones, but it was Sephiroth of the Black Cloak. He is a 3 Angrixis, legendary creature, human soldier, 5 power, 4 toughness. With Masamune, obviously, I already discussed how I would like to see partnered equipment, just because they're so iconically tied to their characters. When Sephiroth does combat damage well equipped, you can pay 5 life and transform him. I don't remember if he transformed into anything very good, but he transforms into Sephiroth One Winged Angel, which is a human angel, legendary creature, human angel, power toughness 7/7, and he had flying and death touch. And then when a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a player, transform Sephiroth One Winged Angel. So you would bounce him back to of the Black Cloak. Cloak, is that the word I'd said? Yes. Only because I thought it would be hilarious to have some kind of non-combat damage trigger, considering he sneaks up behind Aerith and just stabs her in the back. And I'm like, that's not combat. That's a non-combat damage. So I think that would be really funny. I don't know if I like this one as much as some of the others, but it's interesting and something I've thrown together. And then there was Masamune, his sword. The Angel's Blade, I called it. There's a 4 in a black. Legendary artifact equipment. Partnered with Sephiroth of the Black Cloak. And it says slot 6. Equipped creature gains death touch. One of the things, obviously, in Final Fantasy are materia. And I thought it'd be really cool. Masamune, I think canonically, or in one of the games, I don't know if you would call that canonically, has the capacity to hold 6 materia. And so I thought it would be really interesting to have materia. They can be X cost. In this, I've said 2, but it could be X cost, obviously. You can scale with the abilities or keywords or whatever it gives. It's artifact equipment, and I thought it'd be very interesting that it either, well, I wasn't sure if I wanted artifact or enchantments, because obviously it's a bit more magic-y than just artifacts. And I didn't know whether or not I wanted it to... Well, okay, so I knew I wanted it to interact with just the artifact equipment. I didn't know whether or not I wanted it to be an artifact that equips into the artifact. So, but that's what I went with, because I know that you don't lose materia, and you can remove them in games. So I thought that would be more flavor-wise. Makes more flavor sense that way. Ultimately, though, when slotted into an artifact equipment, it gains X. X being whatever ability or keywords or whatever. So you can have a sword, which would have 2 slots. You could slip in 2 materia, and it might give it +1/+1, and vigilance. Obviously, you could also tie those into the the color wheel. So white stuff could gain vigilance, or black can gain death touch, green can gain trample, white could also gain lifelink, blue could gain flying, and then any number of +1 plus whatever's. Red could get a burn ability when this creature attacks, deals X damage to X whatever. But I really like the idea of being able to buff buff weapons, equipment, and that kind of stuff. I think it would be really cool for equipment decks, and give them the capacity for stuff that maybe is outside the color wheel. Like I was saying before, I've got a Boros deck that's all about artifacts and weapons, but it really struggles when it comes to flying or stuff like that. I think that'd be a really cool idea. I also had, I don't know if you would call it, I don't know whether or not it would be legendary or not, but I just had a Chocobo mount, and I don't know if I liked 1 mana. But 1 mana bird mount creature, power toughness 1/2. When saddled, it has non-basic land walk. I liked the idea. Trailblazer boots obviously is something very similar. I liked it being on a creature, on a body. I don't know if that would be too much. I mean, I think that's pretty low to the ground. I think that'd be pretty good for limited kind of sets, or limited play, but I just love the idea of being able to have a creature and then saddle it onto a Chocobo. But I don't know if I would have it as being its own kind of thing. Maybe there's a Chocobo commander. That'd be cool. A Selesnya or Naya. Selesnya or Naya Chocobo commander that cares about saddling. I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know enough about the lore to know about legendary Chocobos. Finally, I think we have my favorite kind of fan theory, prediction, whatever you want to call it, is Ultimacia Chaotic Chronomancer. So she's 2 and a Rakdos. I don't know why we're going to say Grixis. Legendary creature, human sorcerer, 4th power, 3 toughness. When she attacks, you may pay 2, and then essentially she chaos warps. In the lore, she is a chaos chronomancer or a chaos time sorcerer, whatever you call it. And I just really thought it'd be cool to have chaos warp on a body. Ultimately, I think after some discussions with some friends yesterday, that maybe it would be a boast ability, or maybe not boast, activate once only per turn. And I also wanted to give her Grixis. I feel like a lot of the villains from Final Fantasy fit into Grixis or Mardu. I wanted to go with Grixis, but then I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like the idea of Sakashima and Spark Double and cloning having like 6 Ultimacia triggers and just cycling through someone's board. Obviously, you could take out a weenie chump blocker and accidentally drop in a giant dinosaur, which would be sick. Well, I think that works for the chaotic side of it. But now I'm thinking maybe there should be an extra thing on there, which I think would be maybe too much. Maybe you'd have to increase the cost. But if it was when a permanent is put onto the battlefield, it deals X damage to its, which would be good for burn, for the red. It deals X damage to its controller, where X is its mana cost. So that way that you're like, whoa, I've just flipped you into a... What's something that's in my head that's... all I can think of is Draco, the really shitty fucking artifact dragon, the dragon. Its mana cost is like 16. So it's like, okay, you flipped into that, and now you have to deal with 16 damage to your face. Which I think I like the idea of it. I don't know if it's going to work well. Maybe I'll workshop on this one a little bit and then have something better closer to the release. I think we're like 6 months off from the release, so we've got a bit of time. And maybe throw in a bit of a deck tech to this completely random commander that I've made. But I definitely will scale it a bit, because I think that's maybe too much. At least she doesn't have haste. So it would be, I mean, turn 1, turn 1, mountain, turn 2, swamp, dark ritual, cast her, turn 3, swing her, and start removing stuff from people's boards. Unless you could choose your own stuff. But, I don't know. I think that would just take some work. Otherwise, that's, I think, it for everything that I'd come up with. It took me a long time to come up with those. Oh, there is one little extra, and I hadn't done anything else for all this. I just wanted to see a legendary creature, Nanaki, with red 6. I want them to swap the mana symbols around. I know that colorless goes first, but I want it to go red pip and then 6. And I don't know what he would do. I had not thought that far ahead. I just wanted it to be red 6. I think that's cool. Otherwise, that's it from me. That's a quick little video about some of the magic, some of my predictions for the Final Fantasy set. Obviously, I have no say in anything, and I'm not great at designing cards, as we've seen. But also some opinions on the commanders that have been released. If you want to see more of that, maybe I'll throw together a video on building Cloud or building Y'shtola. Those are the two that I am the most keen on. Otherwise, I probably would go Titus Toxic, which no one in my pods would like to play, I can assure you. But otherwise, that's it from me. Please like and subscribe. You can find me on Blue Sky and Moxfield and Architect and Twitch. I'm pretty much Roguish Puck everywhere. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.